All right, we will get the webinar kicked off. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to view the webinar today, to put this into your schedule. Mike, would you go to the next slide, please? Your host today, myself, Bill Hammer. I will be presenting. I'm GM of North America. Along with me is Mike Wood, our North America Channel Manager. And he'll actually be showing a bit of the product at the end of the presentation. The little guy there is Yogi. He will not be presenting today, hopefully. All right, Mike, next slide. This is our agenda. When you take a look at the agenda, there's really a couple of salient points about this. It's taking a look, how can I get productivity gain, i.e. time savings? How can I get a better handle of what I have out in outstanding payments as well as purchase orders, a full view of my AP process, so visibility. And the third thing is, can I actually really get to the point where I can impact AP spend and save money? And then fourth, can we get to the point where we can basically lose the paper? So those are the things that we're going to be taking a look at today, and we'll have a short demo at the end. And then for the Q&A, just put questions in the chat areas, and if there are questions, we will answer them at the end. Next slide. How do you get up to 90% productivity gains with purchasing to pay automation? Well, really, it comes in a couple of places. The first thing you want to really take a look at is your processes on what you do for your approval processes. When you go from a manual system into an automation system, you can, if you so choose, simply use the same approval process that you do manually. You can also take that time to say, we do this manually because of this. If we have this automated, can we potentially change that and be more efficient? So I'll give you a little bit of an example. With the approval processes, if I need to have several people approve something, I may decide to get one approval, send it to the next, and then to the next, and do it in a linear process, which is very slow. And typically I'm tracking through emails and everything else. I might decide to send one email to 3 different people, and each one comes back, then I've got all 3 approvals. So I'm doing a simultaneous type of approval. Yet I still have to track down, did they approve it, did they not? I might have to, walk to their desk, call them, given COVID that people aren't at the desk. So there's this wasted time in trying to get the approval processes. But now when you take a look at a automated solution, if I wanted to take a look at that ability, boy, I want to send it out to 3 people at one time, make sure if that's your process that the systems you look at can actually handle those types of things. And then since we work from every place today, I myself today am sitting in a hotel. The ability to be able to do approvals from any device, any place, and get reminders of, I need to get this approved, versus it getting lost into an email and, wait, I got that last week sometime. The other area for improvement is when an invoice comes in, it has to be coded, that line item has to be coded to a particular GL. If we can automate that process and remove the manual labor from that repetitive process of the utility bill came in, it goes to this GL account every time. If we have an automated system that can leverage AI and actually learn where these things are coded to, I can really take away that repetitive process of that time and focus on things that are more valuable, such as saving money. Next slide. So here's just 2 examples of existing customers. If you take a look at Forge, the salient point there is they did hit 75% time savings when they implemented the iComplete purchase to pay product, okay? And that's quantifiable, going through the time that they saved not having to code all those invoices or track down those approvals. If you look at the Keller group here, the bottom point, the approval workflows in particular were rules-based, which means I can set up the approval to match how I do business versus me having to change how I do business to match the limitations of the automation on what it can do in its approval process. Next slide, Mike. 100% visibility. This is leveraging automation more deeply in that if I have everything coming in through a automated system, I am now capturing all the POs, all the invoices, and all that spend. So I've got the ability to really take a look at not only what invoices are coming in and what's paid, but what's already been raised. I don't have to search and go back to either paper files or if you have a PO system, go in and say, okay, where's the PO? I should be able to take a look at a dashboard that lets me know what have I paid, what do I need to pay, and what's been raised that's coming in that's in the approval process to go out to be ordered. And if you take a look at it from a budget perspective, if I've got the budget above that, I'm at that point where I can do encumbrance accounting because I can see my budget, I can see what's been raised that is committed, I can see what's been purchased, and I can see what's paid. So it gives you that full visibility easily without having to do a lot of gyrations of separate reports or pulling paper together. Next slide, Mike. So some things to think about as you take a look at, gee, we may want to put into play automating our processes. Our chairman has a saying, all savings takes place before the order is placed. Afterwards, we're just diligently accounting for what's been ordered. So when you take a look at that concept, if I do an approval at the purchase order stage, is there anything to do at the AP stage when that invoice comes in other than sign off and make sure that it has its 2- or 3-way match? In essence, the AP was already approved at the time of the purchase order. Now, there are organizations that will say, nope, we're going to do it at the purchase order level, but we're also going to go through another full process of approvals at the AP process. And that's a choice. But one area that you can save time is, if we've done this at the purchase order level, we don't necessarily need to do it at the AP level. And therefore, I can save some time and effort there because it's already been done. The other component to this is in controlling rogue spend. So if I can get the entire organization leveraging a system to raise the purchase recs, I can now can put governance in play on what vendors they use, what items they buy, and I can have that ability to really make sure that they're following internal best practices and preferred vendors by being able to automate what the automation of what they can use to purchase things. And then finally, if I've got the budget management, it's just another full circle that I've got better visibility to everything, more comfort on what is being spent, more confidence in the payments, and what is overall left to be spent. Next slide, Mike. Simply lose the paper. So this one can be a little bit hard. I'll give you a personal story on this. Many years ago, worked for an organization, already had direct deposit, but every other Friday, I would get that piece of paper in my mailbox. That was my pay stub, and I'd look at it, and I'd put it in a file. They implemented a HRMS solution, and my pay stub, my paper pay stub that I got every week now was online. So what did I do every other week? When it was payday, checked, okay, direct deposit's there. I went online, I printed that paycheck, that pay stub, and I put it in a file. I did this for about 3 months. And then I looked at myself one day and I said, I've never gone into that paper file. Why am I printing this every 2 weeks? I couldn't simply lose the paper. It took me a while to realize I don't need to go to that paper file. It's all sitting there online, and quite frankly, it was much easier to find than going through my paper file. So as you do these things, there is some cultural change that you have to get comfortable. For me, it was a couple of months, and I could let go of that paper. So, if there is a way to migrate and have things much more at your fingertips. Next slide, Mike. Next slide. All right. So simply lose the paper. These are simply questions to ask yourself about where you're storing things, what you're storing. When I looked at this the other day going through this presentation, something resonated with me that I hadn't ever really thought of before. And it's really around bullet number 2 here. How much space are you using to store all your records? In that 90% efficiency gain, how much time is wasted getting up from a desk, going over to a filing cabinet to search and look for something when I could simply pull it up online and find it? So, in addition to being able to have the invoices coded that I don't have to type the GL account code every time and have the invoice come into the ERP all set to go, ready to be paid, it's also along the lines of how do I find data? Where is it? Do I have easy access to it? Versus, having to go and print everything, put it in a file, and walk to a file when I want to retrieve it. This also impacts the environment. If we use less paper, we cut down less trees, we are on that green journey. Next slide, Mike. Controlling spend as it happens. This is that area that I talked about earlier of all savings takes place before the purchase order is raised. So in other words, when the purchase order is raised, if I've got control over the approval process of, are they buying the right item? Are they buying it from the right vendor? Are they using the controls that we have in place, or are they doing rogue spend? If I control that, I can start to analyze my AP spend and possibly negotiate better pricing so that by the time the invoice comes in, really all I'm doing is either a 2-way or 3-way match. Did the invoice match the PO? And did I get the items that I've ordered? With Compleat, we will actually match header, the number of line items, as well as the total. So when it matches that PO to the invoice, it's giving you a pretty good matching process that will let you know if something is out of place that you need to drill into it further. And if everything's good, it can simply go straight through. Next slide. So control spend as it happens. Choose your preferred suppliers. So now I'll walk you through another concept here as you take a look all the way down through this process. How many of you order things online from Amazon or another, e-commerce site? You're ordering it online. Now you're going into the ERP to either raise a PO against that, or when the invoice comes in, manually doing that invoice. This is, doing double labor. Wouldn't it be nice if when I went into, say, Amazon, and I wanted to order something, if it was below a particular threshold, I could simply purchase it. But if it was above a particular threshold where I need a PO to be approved, that instead of submit to buy, it says submit for approval. And it pushes the data into a workflow that says, this is what I would like to buy, please approve it. It goes through the workflow. Upon approval, it automatically gets placed with Amazon. When the invoice comes in, it's automatically matched to the PO from Amazon, automatically coded to the GL account codes, because it also knows who raised the order and what department this belongs to, etc. So giving the full visibility and control of the spend all the way through with only having to touch the set of data once. So mitigating manual errors because I'm no longer rekeying anything from a e-commerce site that I placed a order with. We will show you this a little bit later on in the presentation and the savings that comes along with doing this process. Next slide. Improving supplier relationships. With this real view of the purchase to pay process, as I mentioned, we mitigate that human error, and we can be more efficient on the timelines to get payments done and not get the phone calls or making the phone calls of where's the payment, what's the timeline, etc., because we will be able to visually see where it is every step of the way, to the point of it's stuck at this person for approval. Let's nudge them, get them through the process. With the right automation, the experience for everyone involved, finance, as well as the employees that are not in finance, it just makes it a much smoother, easier process. It does business the way we are accustomed to doing things in our lives at home. I simply go to Amazon and I buy something. I don't write a manual purchase rec for it. Just want to go out and get what I want. Next slide. So again, this can make things much easier to do. Now, when you think about having all this data that is digitized through an AI engine, that I've got an electronic purchase order, electronic invoice, and a process to take this through with all this time savings, what does that enable me to do? What it enables me to do is to start taking a look at my AP spend so that I can get going on sorting out what vendors we should be using. And the beauty with setting up a system like this is it is easy to use with minimal requirements, and you can be up and running in a matter of a few days. Really what it comes down to is understanding what your workflows are, making sure that you put the time to design those properly, and we can assist with that. And then the roles of the people who are raising purchase orders or doing approvals. You get those things set up properly, get the vendors loaded in the system, and you can be running very, very smoothly. Next slide, Mike. Making better decisions with real-time data. So as I mentioned before, what do you do when you have huge time savings? What you're doing is the time savings comes from removing a repetitive task, which is a lot of time, but not a lot of value. Where the value comes into play now is taking on the capability to make better decisions by reviewing the data and coaching people internally, making sure that they're using the suppliers that you want them to use, make sure that they know which items they should be purchasing, and then being able to ultimately analyze across the organization the vendors you're using and how much they are charging you. So you can really move from how much time can I save to, I wonder how much money I can save. Next slide, Mike. Next slide, please. So along those lines, what we have with the Compleat product, and there aren't a lot of products out there that have this, so be aware of it, is when the invoice comes in, we have an AI capture engine that's capturing that header and line item detail. That header and line item detail goes into an Azure data lake. And from that data lake, we've got advanced spend analytics that can categorize the AP spend. You could categorize it by IT, by marketing, by G&A, whatever categories you would like to have, professional services. We have relationships with procurement companies. So we know at that line item level, vendor level, what people would other organizations pay for those same items. So what we can do with the advanced spend analytics is give you insight where you possibly could have savings and what percentage savings you could have. Doesn't mean that this is what you will save. It's highlighting these are some areas that you could have savings. Then you can take a look at these categories and say, I think on this particular category, I should delve into this spend a little bit more. Sort out why are we using 100 vendors for 500,000 of spend? Could we potentially be using 15 vendors and get a much better price? So this is where, from that time savings, you can actually start to realize, bottom line hard cost AP spend savings, because you'll now have the time to be able to do this versus a manual system. You'd never have time to take all the invoices, put them into a spreadsheet, and start to search out where we could save money. It would be a task that no one has time to do. So with this automation process, it gives us the ability to not only streamline our processes and repetitive tasks that we save the time, we can now take that time and actually take a look at data digitally to figure out where we may have savings that can take place. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mike to demo. And what we're going to show is that e-commerce integration, which is the fancy term for it is punch out, is what it's called in the industry. But it's basically an integration between a AP purchase order automation solution and an e-commerce site. So Mike is going to go into Amazon and show us how this e-commerce integration works. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Bill. Everyone, so what you're looking at here is just our main dashboard, our general screen. And as you can see on the right-hand side, I'm, just to make it a very quick demo, thank everybody for their time and everything. But just to make it a quick demo, here's where you do the majority of your work over here. You can manage purchase requests, you can manage purchase orders, invoices, look at your budgeting, do your reports, those kind of things. And, if you're interested, please, call us. We'd love to show you a custom demo that suits your business process to begin with. And over here, you'll see I have a plethora of websites that I order from all the time, right? And as long as they have a valid website, we can hook into them. But I'm going to go ahead and just pick one. I'm going to pick Amazon because I think we're all familiar with Amazon. I'm going to log into Amazon. And as you can see, it takes me straight into our Amazon account. It's just, the account that I've got set up on Amazon. It automatically takes me over there. And from here, I can just order. At this point, I'm going to pick out, let's say, something that I order all the time in business. And all I do is, just like I would normally on any type of a website, I just go in there, I add it to my cart. But now, instead of me actually purchasing it, what I do is I say, submit these items for approval, right? And when I click that, what happens is it automatically brings me back over to the Compleat side of it. It automatically creates a purchase request and fills every single thing in. From here, you can see that I've got my company name, when this document was last updated, what the value of the invoice is, or the purchase request is, who is the vendor, what the time, the date. I can choose to edit this if I want to make some changes. If I want it to go, I'm going to order it, but I want it to go to my warehouse district, I can do that. I can add any kind of supporting documents to this purchase order, just so I'm justifying it, you name it. Okay, let's say I have a better quote and I just want to inform people that maybe we should be ordering this from somebody else. I can put that in, save it, and off it'll go along with the document. I can add notes to it, and I can do second for me. Let me get rid of this. Excuse me. I can do from here. You see that I have line item. I can put in any kind of departmental code or GL code that I want to. You'll see since we process by the line item that it's already pre-filled in. And then from here, I just hit order. And what this does is, depending on our workflow, and like Bill referred to earlier, our workflow is very unique among all the, the world of AP automation. We can send it to multiple people at the exact same time for multiple people to do approvals. We can put in all kinds of if and then statements for the approvals, you name it. In this situation, I have moved it, just for a quick demo purposes, I've moved it from a submitted document all the way over to an approved document. And you can see from here, I'm just gonna punch into the request, and you'll see now you've got it up, and it's now got everything pre-filled in. It says that the invoice has been submitted automatically. And then I can also look at my timeline over here, your approval timeline. It shows, like Bill said, everything is transparent, everything's documented, who ordered it, when it was ordered, all that type of information. I also show receipted invoices or purchase orders, excuse me. And once they're receipted in, I can look at what lines were receipted in. Yeah, I can receipt in partial lines. I can receipt in the whole thing at those, at the same time, just like you would in your regular ERP. Once it's been submitted and the invoice comes in, you'll see it now. It's in the unprocessed tray. And what this means is the invoice came in, it went into our email box, then it was matched up with the purchase order. All the lines were looked at. If for example, in this case, the situation, there's no PO that it receipted it to, couldn't find the PO or something like that. But in our situation, it found the purchase order. It went ahead and approved it. And everything's out there, as you can see, ready for approval, ready for to go over into the system and be paid. As I said before, you can now look in the PDF reader. You can see your actual invoice that the system was, that was sent in. You can look at if there's any supporting documents. You would have them right here. You can look at your header information, your line item information, just like that. I can adjust the lines. I can change the department codes, any of that type. And then from here, there's nothing left to do but to submit it into the approval workflow. Once it's approved on the approval workflow, it will come back and I will see that it's been approved. I can see who approved it. I can see once it's posted. If you see right here, once it's been posted, I get a remittance back saying that it has been, posted into my accounting system. And you'll see that it has, the journal that it was posted to, the date that it was posted to, all of that information. So, I apologize, very quick demo. Like I said, we can do a demo for you. And we can customize it. We can show you exactly how it matches your workflow. If you don't use approval steps, you don't have to use approval steps. We can do everything, like I said, also, we can do everything from a simple workflow to a complicated workflow. Does not matter. We can fit your business process. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Bill for the final.
So we've got a couple of questions. The first question came in, can the system be used solely for AP automation? And the answer to that question is yes. Next question came in, how many approvals, how many levels of approvals or number of approvals does the system allow? And it's unlimited in both cases, although we would advise you to work that you don't have, 70 people in one major workflow. Be smart on how you design what the workflows look like. The next question along those lines is, if I'm an approver and I go out on vacation, what happens? Within iComplete, we have a feature called Nominee, where you can nominate someone to do the approvals on your behalf. And let's see if there's any more questions. I will give it a moment or two here for questions to come in. And I'm not seeing any other questions at this point, so we will conclude the webinar. We've got the contact information below. Certainly feel free to reach out directly to Mike Wood, mike.wood@compleatsoftware.com, if you'd like any further follow-up. And again, appreciate you taking the time for the webinar this morning, and I hope you have a very good rest of the day. Thank you so much.
The future is now.